is absent with notice. Jackson?
Here.
Lubes is absent with notice. Joliet?
Here.
Nelson?
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Excellent. Next up, let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of November 30th, 2021. If there aren't any corrections or changes, do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Jackson, support by Commissioner Joliet. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Minutes approved. Next up, we'll move on to our first up. Next up, we've got the approval of the agenda. Before we go into the approval of the agenda, I just want to make note that one of our items, the appointment of Oakland County Community Health Network applications, has been pulled from this agenda, and we will place it on our next agenda on, I believe it is January 25th? On January 25th, with the purpose of, given that there were a plethora of applications attached to our agenda, I wanted to make sure that all commissioners have a good amount of time to be able to review those applications, and then obviously we'll have this be another agenda item at our next meeting, and therefore we'll have a fruitful conversation on looking at those applications. Commissioner Gershenson.
Well, thank you. I have to apologize because when I got the agenda Monday morning, I didn't know how to access the resumes, and I would love to have gone over it today, but that's not going to happen. So my question is, traditionally, the chair or your designee contacts the chair of community mental health and says, how is your board functioning? These people are reapplying. Do you support their reapplication? Or we call those people that are reapplying directly. So did any of that happen?
So actually, can I turn it over to you, Pam? Because I know from what I understand, there was confirming interest of incumbents.
Another board that's coming up March 2nd. That was the consumer. Yeah. So the Cottis Bernard responded and said she did not want to.
I'm sorry. Say it again. Who?
Cottis Bernard said she did not want to reapply.
No.
I have not heard from Elkaya Newman or John Paul Torres, and we did receive an application from John Young, who's a secondary. That's the only secondary we received an application for, but we didn't advertise for that seat. And
We did advertise. I'm sorry, Pam. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
We didn't advertise for the secondary.
Okay.
So, but we did receive one for John Young.
Okay.
That was Cottis Bernard's seat.
She's
She's a
secondary. Okay.
And then we only heard from her saying she did not want to reapply.
Okay.
But I did not hear from the other two, Mr. Torres or Ms. Newman. I did send an email out to them asking them if they wanted to reapply with the link to reapply, and I did not receive a response last week.
Okay, well, that's not good. All right, because I got a call last night from someone in the industry that wanted to apply, but there wasn't a vacancy in that sector
For which one?
for someone that works in the mental health field. There was not.
That was one of the ones we.
It was one.
Yeah, and we did receive some applications for that.
More than one?
Have to look.
Is that the secondary, which are general public, or?
The working in.
No,
mental
working in
health
the
services?
industry.
I believe I have one name.
Bobby Hayes Goodrum, is that the one?
No, so I do have, I was at Farmington Hills Council last night, and there was somebody that approached me about it, and I thought it was more of a discussion item. I would like to encourage him to apply, but if it's too late, it's too late. I
The
understand.
deadline was the 21st of December, but, I mean,
Do we have it within? the Legislative Affairs Committee to reopen.
It's up to you guys.
Well, how does everybody else feel? I don't want to, I don't want to dictate.
Commissioner
And I
Jackson?
respect that, and I think that, I need a point of clarification, because the last I thought that we were doing was just replacing, Mr. Linsberg, the general public representative. So now, since it's a new year, we're looking at the entire board and their desires.
Sure, that's a great.
So I guess that needs to be kind of clarified a little bit better for me. Maybe it's on the agenda, I didn't see it. Maybe just, is all that information there?
All the information is
Okay.
there. And
Okay,
just as a
cool.
little reminder, as we go back into December at our last LAGO meeting, part of one of the last agenda items was to discuss how we would like to proceed, because this committee gets to either waive the posting requirements of these appointed positions. And in that conversation that we had at our LAGO meeting in December, it was, let's open up that application period and see if we get some new applicants in. So I'm happy to say that within the documents that are attached to the OCHN applications is not only all the applications and resumes of those who applied, but staff did a really great job putting together and making sure that you not only had that information, but you also have the mental health code, which kind of breaks down those different components of primary, secondary, as well as a document that lists out the names of those who have applied. So all this information is attached to the agenda item.
Okay.
The sole purpose, again, of postponing this is to make sure that commissioners have the opportunity to review those resumes and applications.
So
Commissioner Joliet?
we're looking at replacing 2 secondary, correct?
There's one individual working in the involvement in the mental health services. We have one general, right, and one secondary. And then additionally, there are some appointments that expire in March. And that's where we were talking initially about the incumbents who were interested. So, given that we were already having the conversation in regards to replacing, given that March 31st isn't too far away, wanted to just roll that into the same conversation. And in light of hearing from incumbents who are interested, great. Given that we haven't heard back, again, as we're reviewing those applications and resumes, we have that information then in front of us for March 31st expirations. Does that make sense?
Well, so as far as any voting on these individuals, that will occur.
That'll occur at our January 24th, and let me just, is it 24th or 25th? So January 25th, LAGO meeting. Commissioner Gershenson.
So just to clarify, if we have an applicant who works in the industry, correct? So if for some reason we're not comfortable moving that person forward, then I'll recontact the person who was interested in applying, because it doesn't seem fair for him to be able to put in a late application.
Sure,
And
Pam?
May I make a suggestion too? If any of you commissioners know of people who are interested and we don't have like an opening, I can provide a link for you for them to apply.
Could you do that for me, Pam? Yeah,
That would be great.
that'd be great. Thank
Even
you.
if there's not an opening, I'm sorry,
Pardon?
they can still apply, like, in lieu of opening?
If the LAGO committee doesn't have any objections to that, sure,
And then they're in they're,
Could you send me one also, Pam?
sure.
Okay.
And you know what, for the record, can you just send all committee members on the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee that link?
Okay.
okay.
All right. Any other clarifying questions?
Well,
before we-
okay, so one more. So there's no interviews then? We're just going to be looking, if there's more than one applicant in a category, maybe we should set up an interview?
Absolutely. If that's where the direction in which we, may go, after our meeting on the 25th, if there's multiple applicants that we feel are really great
Okay.
individuals to fill these appointed positions, then most certainly at that point at our next, January 25th committee meeting is when we can move forward with, in our next LAGO meeting in February, to align up interviews.
Oh,
Got it.
okay. So the process could continue.
Mike?
Can I make a suggestion?
Absolutely.
So right now, we're in the approval of the agenda phase, so we can actually motion to amend the agenda to include this in the other business, and then have the discussion there, and then whatever decisions come out of that, you guys can have motions to take that up as well. So I just want to kind of keep you on task here. that we
Sure,
thought-
I was just giving a preface of why the item got pulled.
Yeah,
For
no, and
postponing
that's
until
fine.
the next item.
And so it sounds like the committee wants to make some decisions, so I'm just wanted to kind of keep you.
So wouldn't those
informed.
decisions be made at our next LAGO meeting?
Right, but if we want to open it back up or anything like that, if this committee has the pleasure to do that under other business, we would probably
So
take that.
Pam, do with
Other
the,
business. Okay.
with, I appreciate that with the inquiry of having the link sent out to commissioners on this committee, is that, that's then implying that we're reopening?
Well, I guess I would suggest looking at the applications we already have.
Absolutely.
And then if you feel that you know somebody that's more qualified for upcoming for March,
Sure.
to keep that in mind and just to have, but it's up to you. I mean, if you open it up again, the link is moot because we're gonna advertise again.
Sure.
But if you,
I see what
whatever
you're
you
saying.
decide.
So here's my recommendation. I think that we should move forward with the application review at our January 25th meeting. At that time, if we feel like we really would like to do some more outreach, at that time, I would say we would make a vote to reopen the application process in light of, we do have about a month and a half to 2 months for that March 31st expiration. So I think at our next LAGO meeting, it would be the best to make those deliberations and decisions and votes and move forward.
Okay.
Is there any objection to moving forward at our next meeting with that information?
Nope.
Okay, so I think then that would avoid the whole extra business. Excellent. Commissioner Gershenson?
Good, I'm good.
All righty. So next up, we'll move on to the approval of our agenda. If there aren't any corrections or changes, do we have a motion to approve our agenda as is? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Jackson. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Agenda's approved. Next up, we'll move on to our first public comment of this morning. As a reminder, this public comment is open for all items that are related to items on the agenda. That being said, I would like to open up public comment. If there's anyone from the public who would like to address the committee, please come to the head of the table. State your name and community in which you reside in. Good morning.
I'm Sandra Carlian from Novi, and I had initially, before I make my other comment, I wanted to mention that the board outside that normally holds the meeting dates and everything is empty right now. So that information should be posted out there as far as when the committee meetings and the full board meetings and everything are. That I went to check it out before I came in, and I see that it's empty. So that was my first concern. But I don't understand why this board created a director-level culture appointee for Parks and Recreation at a time when the fees are being increased to cover shortfalls. I remember last summer that they increased the dog licensing fee and they increased the autopsy fee, which I think it's a bad time to do that with COVID and everything. So those fees are being increased. Did you know that revenue estimates were off by more than $64 million in the year-end report? For a group that claims to want to promote diversity and fairness, doesn't this mean that other county staff have their opportunity to advance removed by changing that from a merit-based to an appointment? So just those things, I'd like that to be on the record, that I think that this is bad timing to create that position, which will increase the funding needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee this morning?
I think I'll use this opportunity to do that.
Sure. Please make your way to the head of the table, state your name and community in which you reside in.
Good morning, everyone. Marcia Gershenson, Bloomfield Township. So I am looking directly at a sign that says face masks required in this building or in this room. I can't see that. So I'd like clarification. We have two people here that are not wearing a face mask, and I don't mean this, in any hostile way, and I see I'm being taped, so that's always comforting. But anyway, I'd like to get clarification on what that means.
Thank you, Commissioner Gershenson. Alrighty. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee? Alrighty. Seeing none, I will close our first public comment. Next up, we'll move on to communications. There are none, so we'll move on down to item number 8, which is our consent agenda. We have one item under our consent agenda, item A, resolution designating January 11th, 2022 as National Human Trafficking Awareness Day and January 2022 as Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Month in Oakland County. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Jackson, support by Commissioner Gershenson. Commissioner Jackson, do you want to speak on behalf?
Sure.
Given that you're the sponsor?
Yes. I just want to say that I'm very proud to bring forth this resolution again this year, as every year this occurs. And our Human Trafficking Task Force in Oakland County that was established in originally activities held in 2014 and became a board-adopted task force in 2015 has been thriving all of these years. It's a bipartisan effort. Myself, Commissioner Markham, Powell, Kowal, Spiz, and I'm trying to think, I hope I'm not leaving anyone off, but we work together as a group along with very many of our internal departments and external help and survivor organizations to look at this problem, because even though this problem is an issue that kind of has an ebb and flow in the news, it's a constant play upon our society and county. I know within the city of Southfield itself, in talking to the police chief, the activity is not as more so in the news as it was at one time, but there's several hotels that we have issues and problems with, and it's not just a human services issue, but it's also an economic issue. As Southfield at one time was a hotbed of just a destination, I want to say, not a hotbed, a destination for business travelers. And there's an effect when our hotels house this type of activity to corporate clients that might want to travel. And the fact that there's not as much travel going on anyway is an economic issue. Sure. So I just want to say I appreciate the support of this board for all of these years in our human trafficking efforts, and we are doing a lot more work to touch the lives and improve and reestablish the lives of survivors of this crime. And last but not least, we have members of our school, Oakland schools, that sit on the task force that have helped us to define vetting procedures, because a lot of people want to help with this issue and want to speak to our young people about this issue, but we have to make sure that the people that we bring in front of our young people are vetted so they don't trigger young people, they don't affect them adversely. And with virtual learning, there's more activity with our young people on the computer, and it creates another opportunity for predators to reach them. Sure. So thank you for considering this resolution today on our consent agenda.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Commissioner Jackson, and also as our chair of our Human Trafficking Task Force, your leadership and work does not go unnoticed, and it is important. So thank you for bringing forward
Yes.
this resolution.
Yes,
For
thank
sure.
you.
Commissioners, any other questions or comments in regards to this consent agenda item? All righty, seeing none, roll call, please.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Joliet,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Motion passes. Next up, we'll move on to our regular agenda. We have one item, item A, Human Resources, Resolution for a COVID-19 Temporary Emergency Leave Policy Extension. Do we have a motion? Motion by Commissioner Joliet, support by Commissioner Gershenson, and we've got Deputy April Lynch with us this morning. So good morning, April.
Good morning. All right, so thank you very much for entertaining this request. A little bit of more background, since we have some new members, is back in March of 20, which I can't believe we're still talking about. It was mandated to provide 80 hours of COVID leave, is what it was called, for anybody who was sick or had any other issues as it related to quarantining or whatnot as it related to COVID. While they did expire later that year through the federal standards, we kept our we call them NPH hours or COVID leave for employees to help them navigate throughout the summer their child care issues, school issues, things of that nature. So those expired on December 31st of this year. The majority of our team members have used most of their COVID leave. So there's 2 requests here. One is to extend the NPH hours or the COVID leave hours that people still have on the books, which is not very many, just a couple hundred folks. But then also we wanted to add another 40 for our employees to get them through the summer. We have a significant amount of people who are quarantining due to their own exposure, their own illness. We're seeing significant issues with childcare again. Schools are closing. A lot of issues as it relates to transportation issues with their kids and just general COVID issues that our employees are struggling with. So we felt at this time it would make the most sense to add another 40 hours that people can use. Also, our goal is that by them having another bank of time to use, is that if they're not feeling well or if their kids aren't feeling well, they feel more comfortable staying home or keeping their kids home because they have some time bank to address that. So our request is to extend anybody who had any of those hours left over from before, as well as giving everyone an additional 40 hours that is set to expire on June 30 of this year. And if we need to extend, we'll bring that back to the board.
Excellent. Thank you, April. I do have a question. Is there any form of verification that is required that employees need to bring forward to utilize the bank of hours?
Yes, they'll have to show proof either of a positive COVID test from a facility that, not from a home test. It'd have to be from an urgent care or a doctor, or proof of quarantine due to a family member requiring them to quarantine, school closure, anything of that nature. Or, a lot of people are finding their daycares are shutting down, so most of them will have proof of their need for COVID hours, and our labor department, Julie Fish and Rosie Wood, will be navigating all of that for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, April. My last question is, this is obviously applicable for both full-time employees and then part-time?
Part-time will get 20 hours.
Excellent. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions, comments in relation to this item? Commissioner Jackson, followed by Commissioner Gershenson.
Mine is quick. 40 hours will be added for the people who have already used theirs up to this point, and those folks that have not used 40 hours will get, just to take the 40 hours that they have remaining. They're not going to get an 80-hour bank or anything, right?
No, we'll allow them to continue, so they'll have potentially, a few more hours than the 40.
Okay.
They've been able to continue to either have lucky and not have COVID or not have exposure issues, but we're going to allow them. There's not as many people that have any left over, but
Okay.
we figure at this point that they've earned it, if you will. They've been very good stewards of their hours. Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner
Yes, no problem.
Commissioner Gershenson.
Well, thanks, April. I think this is a great idea. I mean, we're dealing with a surge, and we certainly don't want our employees feeling under the pressure of coming to work, or we want them taking care of their kids. And so I think it's a great idea. I support it. Thanks for putting it forward.
Absolutely. Any other questions or comments, commissioners? All righty. Seeing none, roll call on item A.
Joliet,
Yes.
Gershenson,
Yes.
Jackson,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas, 0 nays.
Excellent. Motion carries. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, April. Next up, we'll move on to item 10 of our regular agenda, which is our second public comment. As a reminder, this is for any item on the agenda, off the agenda, that individual would like to speak on. So I'd like to open up public comment. Second time, are there any individuals who would like to address the legislative affairs?
Did you want me to say anything about the mask policy?
Sure, absolutely.
Only if you
Sure, absolutely. Good morning.
Hi
Please state your name
again.
again and just give me your name
Sandra
as you
Carlian
reside. Good morning,
from
Sandra.
Novi. And I have science background, and I prefer to follow reasonable evidence and exactly what's written. One of your commissioners, I guess Marcia Gershenson, had a public comment earlier today regarding the face mask, challenging that this sign says face masks required in this building. Apparently, she neglected to read the bottom of the sign that says service will not be denied to anyone, regardless of vaccination or mask status. So I'd just like to point out that the very sign that you referenced makes it clear that at this point in time, this is still a liberty and a choice in our county, our state, and our country. And I also would like to comment that the dependency on the mask depends on not touching it. It depends on a proper seal and sizing to the face. And it depends on not pulling it down as you did to address the person on the Zoom video. So we really need to be consistent about this, not just combative with people who make their liberty and choice to not rebreathe their gaseous waste products.
Thank you, Sandra. I do know that we have our Chief of Staff, Patty Dibbs, with us. I believe she has some additional information and insight in regards to previous public comment from earlier. So welcome,
Thank you,
Chief
Chair.
Dibb.
Thank you, Chair. The policy is an internal policy that employees have to abide by as employees of Oakland County, in that when there are meetings, employees are to wear masks. And when 6-foot distancing cannot be maintained, they're supposed to be wearing masks. And the masks for the public are recommended and encouraged, but not a requirement.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to address the Legislative Affairs and Government Operations Committee? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Seeing that there are no additional items on our agenda, if there isn't any objection, I'd like to declare this meeting adjourned at 10:09 a.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.